The healthcare system globally is a sick care model. We look at people when they are sick. It's not a proactive approach. It's not a readiness model. It's a crisis and chaos model. You don't rise to motivation before care system. If you don't have proper systems, you are crushed. You can't succeed in life because everything is friction and you're always going to find complaints and you're going to find issues with everything and you're not going to get where they need to go.
This is another episode of the Blueprint Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Jelani Reed. And today we have a very special guest with us, none other than Dr. Michael Taylor. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Jelani.
So how does one move from being a practicing medical doctor on the ward to now being, I would want to say, a personality in our scope of things?
Very good question. I would say in life, one has multiple instances where you have something called an ego death. So essentially, that means you get to a point in your life where you realize that things are not as they seem, and you have to do something. You have to change in order to make things congruent with your idea of what reality should look like. I remember specifically in my case, I was on the ward. This was probably about 4 years ago. And there was this specific patient. I just finished my shift and I was called to enter back into the hot zone or re-enter the hot zone because a procedure needed to be done because a patient had crashed. Now, I went in and basically performed what people may say was a miracle because his heart stopped beating, he stopped breathing, and I would have put in a tube that makes you be able to attach to a machine and have your ventilation done for you and oxygenation. And then, because he was an end-stage kidney failure patient, I had to put in a line for him to receive dialysis as well too, which is a treatment where you filter the blood because the toxins have built up and you are unable to excrete via the urine. And this patient's potassium was exceedingly high, which caused the heart to stop. And I remember looking and doing very unusual and remarkable things in order to save this guy's life. And his heart actually started to beat, which is very rare because it's unusual for CPR and life support mechanisms to actually work, especially if you are not there witnessing the patient crashing in front of you. And I thought to myself, we got ICU on board, and this patient actually would stay a month in the ICU care. And I got to see him walk out. But it hit me, I'm like, this guy will probably be back here in about a week or 6 weeks. Sorry, a month or 6 weeks, just because of the lifestyle that got him to that place, which would have been getting the diabetes and the high blood pressure to begin with, which led to the kidney failure. And I said, okay, I'm basically just patching up wounds. And I said, I need to do more. More has to be done so that I can have a bigger impact and leave a better legacy behind my name. And that's how I started branching out, trying to do more things and incorporate patients on a population level, looking at things from the ground up as well as from the top to bottom, which would be things like policy changes and partnering with public and private stakeholders.
So, Mike,
Yeah.
there's no course in med school that prepares one to, I guess, be on television.
Right.
There's no course in med school that basically gets an individual wanting to do more and actually doing it. So let me dress back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you're not the only person who would see an issue or have a feeling that they want to do more. You're not the first person, but what you are is the minute set that have the feeling wanting to do more, and actually doing it.
Yeah.
how did you prepare yourself, or how does one truly take just the thoughts and put it to action?
So basically, you are trying to say what makes someone go through with what they have set out in their mind to do. The answer to that is very complex. It's not simple. But first thing I would say is you have your goals. Your goals are your compass. And then you have systems. And the system is the vehicle that gets you to where you need to go. Outside of that, you have the environment. That is one of the most powerful predictors of behavior. So I would say, firstly, after you determine your goal, you have to figure out how are you going to get this thing done. And then the most powerful thing you can do adjacent to that would be removing yourself from your current environment. The reason is the saying that we are the sum total of the 5 people we hang around the most with is not just a by the way statement. We actually influence, unbeknownst to us, by those people surrounding us to the point where we are a mirror image or reflection of them. So you now have to ask yourself, who am I surrounding myself with? And it's not just the physical person, but also the environment itself. Because sometimes we have environments that actually create friction for us to actually do what we want to do or say what we want to do. And I think that once you do those two things, you are now on the path, because we know culturally that there's a thing called crab in a bucket mentality. The thing is this: the path of the exceptional is being the exception. So you have to realize, I have to be different. And once you realize people are saying, hey, who do you think you are? What do you think you are doing? You're not going to be good at this. You realize, no, hey, I'm probably on the right path.
Yes.
You understand?
Okay, that's interesting, because okay, the spin-off of that, or the alternative, and I guess this is what prevents people from actually taking that leap, is that you're wondering, oh God, what they will say, who he or she feel
Yes.
they are, and and sometimes it's your family, it's your friends,
Yep.
and the fight, where people say it's a fight down, it's not really a fight down, but it's more of a fight to kind of break the shackles that is holding you, because you are weighing more or valuing more, the external views
Yep.
than yourself.
Yeah.
And I suspect that, going through the traditional way of medicine, right? You go med school, you come out a house officer, register, go up the works, and you basically stay in that niche,
Yeah.
right? And you now not wanting to, but you coming out of the niche and bringing that concept of medicine, or that concept of science of medicine, to the population to understand what we do on the wards.
Yeah.
That's different. And one can only imagine, some of those naysayers that you would have had to deal with. So, not probably specifically, but how do you, or how have you dealt with those naysayers and the external voices?
So I have been different from birth, like just because of my background, etc. I have always been treated differently. So in school growing up, I have been, attempted to be bullied and all these different things, which would create a certain persona, So I would have to, you know, I would have to basically create myself into this type of person that is resistant. So since I was small, primary school, secondary school, because I have been through multiple different schools, different difficulties making friends, etc., because of the continual moving, etc. And when you are unusual individual and you are placed in a group, you have to now decide, am I going to conform to this group or will I be different? And that has been me since the start. And basically, I would never conform. I would always be different. And I would always know that, hey, I am here for a different purpose and I'm here to achieve things differently. It's not that I'm better than anybody. It's just that I I am so okay. We have people who follow the masses. And basically we need to understand that society is actually a sort of factory type system where you basically have something, hey, you indoctrinate children from young. We grow up, we have to do this, as you were saying. And following that means you become like everybody else. Again, that is not the part of the exceptional. And I always knew that I was my own person and I would think my thoughts. And what people need to understand is this: every single belief you have, I would say when you reach a man, when you enter into manhood or womanhood, you must now question every single belief you have. The reason is this: 90% of the beliefs that you have at 18 years old are from your parents. Now you have to ask yourself, does this make sense? And if you cannot justify a belief, then it is not your belief. You are now just regurgitating. You are now just becoming a mirror image of your parents. I have a friend called Andre, he told me this. He said, when you are born, you look like your parents. When you are die, you look like your decisions. So I think that you have to have your own agency. You have to have your own autonomy. You have to be able to make choices on your own outside of the external influence of others. Otherwise, you will just be like everyone else.
So, what beliefs have you questioned? And probably we can take it into medicine, in terms of the structure or how we go about doing things.
Yeah,
What are some beliefs you have now
right.
reconsidered?
Yeah. So I would say one of the most powerful things that I have adopted and knew instinctually is that we are in control of our destiny. Related to medicine, what that means is that we have this thing of genetics. What is the patient's genetic history? And we seem to have gotten to the point where mother or father has diabetes, mother or father has cancer, you are automatically going to get X. And that could not be further from the truth. The fact of the matter that saying that everything is based on genetics and we have the culture where my mother has diabetes, so I'll just get it. That has created weak individuals and people who have no agency to be able to make their own decisions and their own future. And I think that is the worst thing that has happened to us as a society and to the world in general. Look at it like this, right? If I have a parent who is diabetic and I convince myself I can't do anything to not get diabetes, I'm going to get diabetes, right? And there's this thing called nature versus nurture, where they took identical twins, you probably know the study, and they separated them at birth. And the parents had diabetes, and one of the children went on to develop diabetes. The other one did not. The only thing that was different was the environment. So that means that the most important thing people need to understand is this: disease has a level of genetic predisposition. But all that means is that genes can be turned on and off by certain things in the environment, which include your behaviors. So, for example, if I am very active, I eat a healthy diet, I am going to turn off most of the genes for cancer development. Simple. And there are some rare diseases that have almost 100% chance of developing this condition. But again, that is very rare. And we cannot look at a bug as a feature. So I think that is the most powerful thing that I have taken away, that we have the ability to determine if we are going to get certain diseases or not.
Don't you find that, so we could expand it a little bit?
Yeah.
So what about, so we have seen basically genetics versus environment, and we're saying that environment has a great impact or a great factor in terms of one's outcome. So that's in terms of medicine, that's in terms of disease, that is in terms of one's health. What's in terms of society? So you have two persons, one with a perfect, well, I'm going to say a perfect environment, but everything's just mellow. Everything is going according to plan.
Yeah.
And then you have those who's a part of an environment that really and truly doesn't inculcate their best version. There is a sense, though, from some in our society where they see the effects of the environment as their genes, meaning that because I'm from this community, it means that this is how I have to be. Well, what's your views on that?
It's a very powerful belief. And we need to understand that belief shapes our reality. The problem is this is not just now, this is multi-generational. And we all know one of the major contributors to this. And I think that this has just become a pervasive thought pattern heading along through generations sequentially, and some communities display it worse than others, or more predominantly than others. And it goes back to what I said originally, where if you are trying to change, you have to change the environment. Some environments are not conducive to excellence or to what you want to do in life, simply because of the fact that you're not going to have the support, you're not going to have the mentorship that you would need, and you're not going to have the freedom to do what you think you should do. And you're also going to have opposition. So those are four very powerful factors that are going to affect your upward trajectory in life, as well as have a major impact on the likelihood of your success or lack thereof. So it's like people can have success. But again, that is rare. Just because of the overwhelming odds, it's rare, it's sad, but it is the reality.
So my young person wants to become a doctor,
Yeah.
right, in Trinidadian. And so they're looking on the program and they're saying Dr. Mike Taylor. So the presumption would be when secondary school did the CSEC subjects, did CAPE, and went on to med school. And from our conversation, he went to Mona.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you as a transitioning from, I would say, the safety of secondary school now to a field like medicine in the educational part or aspect of it?
Yeah. So the transition was a very difficult one because, you went to a new country and you're alone, which is fine because I'm an only child.
No.
But in terms of the requirements, meaning how much effort is required, I usually didn't need to work that hard in life in terms of school, etc. Because things used to come relatively easy to me. Medicine was a different ball game, and I woke up very quickly and realized that after my first semester, when I did not perform well at all, I had to tell myself, how bad do I want this? And I went and I became a different person. I eliminated all distractions. Any person who is telling me about this and that, bye. And I was so focused on my goal that nothing deterred me and prevented me from doing what needed to be done. Meaning, in life, I think one of the things that people don't understand is just how much work is required to become great. And thinking something is going to be easier than it is actually makes it harder. I think people are not willing to do the amount of work that is required, the hard work. In their mind, hard work that's hard for them, but not the reality of what hard work actually is. And many people don't understand that. So for me, my schedule used to be I would study that, like, I would study probably from about 8 in the morning. They say 8, 9, not lie. 7, because I used to get up at 6. 7 till about 10 p.m. at night, bedtime. Wake up at 2, start studying again. So I used to do that Monday to Friday. I would rest, take a day off on the Saturday. And the thing about it is, what I realized about life was that there was this book called The Harrisons for Medicine. And it was one of the books that, like, the seniors used to use, residents and consultants. I got that book and I read out that book. And when I went on the wards, I mean, I knew everything. But the one thing it taught me was that it shows you how much you don't know. People think that they have all this knowledge. No, when I started to read it, I realized, wow, there's so much I still don't know. I still probably only know 1%. There's so much information out there. And it's a conceited notion to think that you know it all.
And that's the unfortunate thing about all human beings,
Yeah.
because we believe that when we have attained something, either career-wise or personal development wise, we believe that when you get that piece of paper, that's it.
Yep.
Right? I would prefer, based on what our conversation thus far, that's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Of it. So let's now go into, I guess, a new prevailing issue, which is burnout from being a professional. Well, we are biased, right? Medicine on a whole,
Yeah.
I guess we are the definition of that.
Yep.
But, lawyers, accountants, and as the world is even getting more advanced where technology is concerned, it's calling on professionals to you have to do some gymnastics,
Yeah.
right? Mental gymnastics, to stay at not even to get ahead, probably just to stay current,
Yeah.
right? And then added upon that, the responsibilities that you're getting with your what you have been doing all the time has increased
Yeah.
exponentially. So first things first, what is burnout? Is it a new phenomenon? And what are your thoughts on that?
So burnout is essentially an infrastructural issue or systems flaw. It's essentially a decreased or reduced capacity to do what you should be doing. And that goes back or ties into performance. Just one of the features of poor performance when we look at things like leadership and development and growth. We have executives and top leaders and performers who are chronically stressed. And the thing about it, it's a biological issue, it may not be a moral one. So when you have a situation where you are chronically stressed, sleep deprived, chronically inflamed, sugars are high in the blood, all these different things happening to you, you are going to have problems with your focus, your cognition. And when you don't have proper systems and the proper architecture around you to actually say, hey, I do this, no friction, you can run into burnout or you will run into burnout. So I think it's a fundamental systems flaw. Other people can also say that, or they may also say that it's something to do with appreciation, meaning you don't feel as though your work is valued. I think there's some merit to that where some persons can actually feel a little more valued. So, for example, I had a colleague who works at hospital and they feel undervalued. And they came to do a health fair with me and they were like, wow, this is the best thing I've ever done in life. And there was no compensation, nothing. It was just that the person felt that their effort made sense and it was impactful to someone. Whereas the structure, the system of healthcare as it is can sometimes make people feel that what they are doing means nothing. And that is not just the system, but even societal and the community around them. I know firsthand 3 doctors who committed suicide over the last 2 years. And we have professionals who are depressed. And you are doing one of the most self-sacrificing jobs. And it's exceedingly difficult when you have people who are ungrateful and then you have a supporting system that is not treating you as you think you should be treated. So it's very difficult to kind of balance that. There are things you can do. I always say that you must always be in control. What that means is this. When I look at any problem, I always approach it from 2 contexts. 1 is me and 2 is external. So externally, yes, the system is doing X, Y, and Z. Internally, what can I do? Because when you blame someone else, you give them the power. So there's a saying that it may not be your fault, but it's your problem. So you now have to find out, okay, am I doing the most that I can humanly, physically do to make sure I get X, or to make sure I am the best version of myself, or to make sure that this is sorted? And if you are not, then you have work to do. And stop blaming others, because it's very easy to blame. Everyone blames, when you look at successful people, they do not blame others for what happened to them. But when you look at unsuccessful people, they say, well,
They start off with blaming.
it's because of this one, it's because of that one, that's why I didn't get here, that's why I didn't get this job. And you have taken no responsibility for anything in your life, and you will remain unempowered.
Correct. And interestingly, that was one of the teaching lessons for me in medicine, taking responsibility. I always remember there was an occasion on the ward where, so one of my colleagues would have gotten some piece of information. I took the information and I presented it.
Yeah.
And so when the question was asked, I said, well, I got it from that consultant. Didn't want to hear that, right?
Okay.
Because you have to take responsibility
Yeah.
for, what it is that you're presenting.
Yeah, true.
And that, I guess, extends to life on a whole and how we operate in society. Because at the end of the day, so funny enough, when you said with successful people, like Oprah Winfrey, a woman that we all look up to, she was abused, sexually abused when she was younger. And I will always remember as well of her telling her story the first time she went to live with her mother, where she couldn't even sleep inside the house because she was too dark, right? And but yet still she's the richest woman of African descent in the United States,
Yep.
probably even the world.
Yes.
So, and I use that example to tell young persons that it's not that people do not care about your situations or what you went through, but the lesson that I want you to pull from it is this: don't matter how difficult your life is or the experiences that you would have had. Always remember it had somebody who went through worse than you, but still outperforming you.
Yeah.
And then there's a major lesson in life. The only unfortunate thing about it is that this life lesson you tend to learn, well, you will only appreciate it after the fact, not when you're enduring it.
Yeah.
Which is that you can't say you believe in God for and only know he exists when good things happen. You have to appreciate him when everything happened. And this is the lesson of life, because you realize that it's like ballroom dancing. It's two partners, the good and the bad. And that's what makes the end product, the individual. And that's how you're able to function.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I wanted to say something, but I lost my train of thought.
Okay.
With the Oprah.
Yes.
What are you saying again?
With all that she
Right.
endured, yes.
So, my belief, one of the beliefs I have is this, that events just occur. You have events. You decide what meaning you ascribe to it, good or bad. For example, a murderer is killed. A child is killed. In both situations, death has occurred. But some people say, yes, they're happy that this person died, and they are very sad that this person died. So it's kind of akin to the glass half full versus half empty. You decide what meaning an experience has to you. And by that merit, I think if you go to the extreme, which I tend to do a lot of the time, try to find a positive outside of every single experience that you have. The reason is this: a negative view on anything will never help you. A negative thought is 10 times as bad as a positive one or impactful. And a negative thought spoken out or said is 100 times more because you compound it, which means that this has an effect on how I behave. And, that's actually a psychological thing that actually affects the CNS, etc., etc. And it just goes to show that your belief system is going to determine who you are. There's a saying, and I'm trying to remember it. Basically, it's the older people would say, seeing is believing. But that's false. The truth is, you have to believe it first before you can see it. That framework, that's how I operate. And if we look at innovation, the person who created the plane, right? They didn't just say, well, seeing is believing. No, they made it happen. They believed in it first. So you cannot operate from that perspective of seeing is believing. That is the worst thing you could ever do. Anytime someone tells you that, say bye.
I have never thought about it like that. And even if you let's expand it a bit.
Yeah.
That's how religion works as well.
Yes.
You have to believe in your creator before ever seeing him. Yeah.
I'll sorry to cut you, but
Yeah, go
taking this, right? In the Bible, they had a saying that I think there was the two blind guys, and they touched Jesus' garment, and he said, "As you have believed, you are healed."
Yes.
That is very powerful.
Yes. Wow. I've never thought about it like
Yeah.
that before. And you see it has a lot of rippling effects into it as well. Huh? Wow.
Let me tell you something. You might not hear this if you don't need to. But let me tell you, so there's a book I read called The Power of the Subconscious Mind,
Right.
right? And it talks about the different minds that we have. We have the subconscious mind, we have the conscious mind, and we have the infinite mind or the God mind.
Right.
And what happens is when you sleep, the subconscious mind or the unconscious mind is activated. We have different waves, the theta, the delta, gamma, all these different types of waves. And we know, I know, you know as well, medically that this is real because when you have a patient with seizures, we have the EEG, we can put on electrodes, and we can actually measure your brainwave activity. And in terms of my belief system, I believe everything is connected. The reason is this. We have energy, so we have frequency and vibration. And the heart, we can put on our ECG. We can measure the electrical activity, the voltage from the heart based on these leads. Same thing with the brain. So, okay, if you get down to the molecular level, you and I know that we have a pH system. We have
Alkaline
anions. We have cations and ions, right? Positive and negatively charged. Is the world both positive and negatively charged, magnetically, North Pole and South Pole? And I believe that there's some sort of relation, because think about it like this. I could take a metal pole and I could magnetize it. I could change it north to south, just like how I could give a patient bicarbonate and change them from acidic to alkaline. So basically what that means is that how and everything is muscular contraction based on, the whole, they call that thing again, by the action potential
Oh yeah.
when you have the voltage
Yeah.
gated challenge, and all these things happen. And that's just based on current, which is based on electrical activity. And you pull all that back to the fact that the earth has an electromagnetic thing. And then you ever notice sometimes when you go into a room and there's a bad person or somebody you don't like, you feel an aura.
Yes, you do.
That is not a whimsical thing. There's actually two experiments I'll tell you about. Quick one is they did a study on ice, water, and they got the subjects to actually project their feelings on this water and assess it under the microscope. And one group, feelings of hate, jealousy, envy, anger. The other one, love, goodwill. And when he looked at the ones that were administered the feelings of hate, etc., they formed haphazard structures. And when he looked at the love, they formed a lattice that was very nicely structured,
Yeah, and connected.
which is wild. The other study they did was the one with the plants.
Yes, that's yeah.
Yeah. So how can you tell me that these things don't like energy is not real? Because I can emit my feelings and the way I feel and change your physiology.
Right.
That is the same thing. We go back to the five people they hang around with. We can't see it. You could hear what they say, but the feeling, you can't, I can't explain it, but I know there's something happening there that we don't know about.
So, I want to bring this to system back to systems, right?
Yeah.
In our preparation to be called Dr. X, Y, and Z,
Yeah.
this part of the science of the human as a whole, even yes, we do have blocks where we have to contemplate on mental health and the effects and how you manage it, right? But that whole of body or whole of systems approach we don't have. So that's in terms of just managing the patient.
Yeah.
So let me also bring it to healthcare as a whole, as a body, right? And even back to burnout, because the reality is that as you would have indicated, is either a lack of appreciation, meaning the individual feels, or that the systems established does not inculcate you to be the best version of yourself,
Yeah.
right? So, for the benefit of our audience, is like, as for a doctor, you have your shifts, you have your calls, you go to the hospital, you do what you have to do, and you just leave,
Yeah.
right? And it costs the country on what, $500,000 to produce every doctor, and I highly doubt it's just shift workers that.
Exactly.
So what's your thoughts about that? About the system of healthcare?
Big question. But let me bring up a quote I have
Sure.
regarding burnout. Most burnout isn't weakness, it's unmanaged physiology. So, in terms of the healthcare system, I wouldn't call it a healthcare system, it's a repair shop. The hospital is a repair shop. And most of the time, you only go there when you are in extremis. People may say more flour than water. And that is terrible. The healthcare system globally is a sick care model. We look at people when they are sick. It's not a proactive approach. It's not a readiness model. It's a crisis and chaos model. There's actually something called something akin to a health score, where different countries, they compared how much a country would spend.
Oh yes, with the WHO assessment.
Yeah. How much a country would spend and how healthy the country is.
Right.
And America spends the most and is the least healthy. And some of the Norwegian countries spend the least and are the most healthiest. It's because they put most of the money into prevention. Prevention it's not the heroic thing in terms of how it looks. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it's quiet. But it's the most meaningful and important work that can be done.
So, okay, so you're saying that, therefore, as a society, we should lean more towards the preventative care of medicine. What do you mean by that, and what are we to do at 2026?
Yeah. I had a 35-year-old patient 2 weeks ago came into the hospital to amputate her foot because she had an infected foot because of diabetes. Diabetes is the number one cause of an atraumatic amputation of the foot. At 35 years old, what is this person's quality of life? 2 months ago, I had a patient, 32 years old, a massive heart attack with death. All she had was high blood pressure. The fact is, chronic diseases are appearing earlier and are more aggressive. When we look at a preventative model or approach, there are many ways to look at it. Predominantly, we're looking at systems again. And we can look at the biopsychosocial model. But what we are trying to say is that we are dealing with health before there's an issue. So we are looking at readiness, we are looking at performance. I'll give you an example too. I had a patient who he had heart failure. His heart function was 15%. And he came to me for a disability form to get aid,
Yeah.
etc. He missed the clinic a week before. And I asked him, why did he miss the clinic? He said that he had to work. So I explained to him, I said, well, if you are unhealthy or if you come to emergency, you are not able to work. And it's very difficult for people to understand that concept. So it's like I'm putting my work before my health. A friend called Andre said this. He said, listen, we would trade the the two assets that we have the most of for another. For example, we are born with three assets at life: health, wealth, time. So in our life, we would trade two for the one we have the least of. So we would trade our time and our health to get wealth.
Yeah.
And that is the model until you get to pension age, and then you invest all the money that you accumulated with time
For health.
back into health, right? The problem is that used to work, but because people are getting sicker now, they are not even getting to pension age. That 35-year-old, that 32-year-old. So now your quality of life is zero. And there's something called the health span. The health span is how long am I alive where my quality of life is optimal, I'm functioning well in society, I'm doing good, helping others, providing service. Your lifespan is how long you are alive. Now, over the last 100 years, the delta between the health span and the lifespan has widened so much that it's nearly half. So these people are 32, 35 years old who are getting sick. Their health span is 35 years old because their quality of life will decline. They cannot function in society, and now they have become a burden on not just society, but their family, the people around them. There's something called caregiver burnout. So when we look at prevention, these are the things we are trying to prevent. Last year, government spent over $60 million in chronic disease meds alone, right? I mean, I'll be careful what I say now, but you know, I think it's not the best move to invest extreme exorbitant amount of money into
Pharmaceuticals.
as well as acute care,
Mm-hmm.
right? As opposed to prevention. Prevention, we are looking at how can we keep this person healthy. Healthy is not just the absence of disease. You want optimal performance. That targets burnout. So we're looking at your sleep. We are looking at stress, resilience. We are looking at your cognitive function. We are looking at your metabolic systems, which is your energy systems. We are looking at your nutrition, your exercise, and we are looking at your overall output in life. That's what I mean by prevention.
But so what you're asking us, though, it may exist in silos, all right?
Yep.
So it's not to say that you can't get the services that you just spoke about, but
Yeah.
when you go to your doctor, the doctor is only going to treat or deal with what is in front of them or what you came in for,
Yeah.
and not appreciating I would say the system, or I would say, every aspect of what makes or is what is contributing to why you're here in front of me. So is it that you're saying we probably have to look probably through out the book and start from scratch in terms of how we organize the administration of medicine?
I would say yes, we should do that. The answer is would we do it? Probably not, because the system that we have is deeply entrenched, and there are many reasons for that. It's not something that you can overhaul so easily. You must have unanimous agreement or an overwhelming agreement from parties involved. And it's a difficult thing to do. I think that the logical approach would be the same thing I mentioned, which would be ground up, bottom down, policy, those type of things would have impact. It's not impossible. If we look at the Scandinavian countries, they have done tremendously well in the things that they have done, to the point where some foods you have to pay tax to consume them because they are unhealthy, right? I always say health is a component of two things in terms of knowledge base, which is your education, and execution. So, do I know enough? And am I doing what I'm supposed to do
Yes.
with my knowledge?
Yes.
And once you have a merger of the two,
That-
optimally, then you could achieve health. So, we can target, at least the education side. The execution side is another thing where that's systems in terms of how do we get people to the point they need to be, where like the point they need to be at. Yeah, it's a difficult challenge. But so for me, most of my efforts now are directed at performance optimization. That is readiness.
So tell us about that.
So what I mean now is looking at 5 very important pillars: sleep, cognition, readiness, resilience, energy and metabolism, and output or longevity. These are the key things that come together that make someone perform optimally well. And the lack of any of these thereof is going to cause someone to suffer from medical diseases and conditions, burnout, anxiety, all these other things can be linked to these 5 pillars. And that's where I put most of my efforts and energy now.
So on a practical basis, how does one deal with stress or measure stress? How does one, in terms of optimizing self, is it uh, an individual thing where somebody, because I know some of these Apple Watch,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I'm an Apple fan,
Right.
will measure these things for you, right? And you can't go to your GP
Correct.
to do that.
Correct.
You can't go A&E to get that done. So is there a place in Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean, that we could go?
So I've actually founded the first institute to do such. And it's primarily focused again on performance, resilience, and longevity. And that is where my focus is. And that's for people who are very high performers and who are C-suite leaders and founders and those who have nation-centric decisions in their portfolio that they have to execute on, because these are the people that would be responsible for the things that happen to us on a day-to-day basis. That's where my focus is there. And well, in the HNAT, the NGO that I have, that is now the population derived same philosophy, where now we're looking at the population level. So it's the same concept. I went back to the ground up, bottom down approach. And this is new. And the future of healthcare is not in the hospital. The future of healthcare is in preventative systems that makes one not even need to go to the hospital. The leaders that understand this early are the leaders that will win, those that will be able to make exceptional decisions and have a better quality of life in the long term.
I remember having a conversation with one of my uncles, and I said, this was me young growing up, And I said, there's an observation where many of the world leaders, there's a tendency for them in their 50s, in modern life, to just drop dead,
Right.
and that's because, lack of contemplating about the most important asset that you have, which is health.
Yeah.
And the other aspect from your conversation here, i- funny enough, the thing that actually matters the most to us is the thing that is the abstract things that are that the most difficult to actually measure.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
The intangibles.
the
Yes.
intangibles. So, for example, you have a patient who's anemia. You know that because when you take your blood,
Yeah.
the CBC, you do the CBC and you get your readings.
Correct.
But how does one truly measure performance? How does one truly
Yes.
measure stress? You know,
Excellent question. So I actually developed something called the executive performance score, where you actually take data from all those 5 pillars that I told you about, and then you come up with a score. And this score is going to tell you if you are performing well, if you are underperforming, or if you are horrible, right? That's as simple as it gets, although there are many
Yeah.
different things involved. So essentially, that's a very good observation. And because of the advances in medicine, we can do it. Just because we are not doing it doesn't mean it's not there already. And that's why it's something that I'm working towards.
connecting the knowledge and the
Exactly. To make this thing happen as it should, because people need to know certain things and people need to be able to be guided in the right way so that they could win in life.
So, as we're winding down, so therefore, what you're also asking us to do, Mike, well, probably, is in the next, 10, 15, 20 years, we have to even reimagine how we are training our health professionals. like, I can see like I hit a point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yes, it's a part of the contemplation
Yeah.
because so the other part of it is that you can have good systems,
Yeah.
but if you don't have the individuals now to execute it, as you spoke about execution,
Yeah.
that's another pressure point.
So there are 2 ways to approach that. One is we accept the system for what it is, which is doctors have a role, a tremendously important role. We cannot have acute care without doctors. Like, that's a must. Surgeons,
Yeah.
they're very important. So, one, we say, okay, we have this system, but this is a little cogwheel in the grand scheme of things. There are so many different parts that have come together to create this puzzle. So I think it's more of a understanding of the holistic nature of health and understanding that, yeah, this has a role to play when you get sick. Because before you get sick, it's a little difficult. Yeah, we have screening and stuff like that, but it's still not optimal. That's very it doesn't work well.
Yeah.
The other, and we could see, right? The other thing is this, right? Probably have to edit this out. But let's look at this. Over the last 30 years, more and more money is pouring into cancer research, yet we are no closer to getting any cure. So that should raise a red flag, right? Now, the other thing now would be we understand that, hey, there are different pillars that can support health, right? In medicine, you don't learn anything about nutrition. You don't learn anything about exercise. You might learn American Heart Association guidelines, things like that. But that's not really of any sort of big merit in terms of making overall change for the patient. But understanding that there are people who are skilled professionals at those tasks that you can refer. So they probably need to look at maybe how they refer and widen that network. So, for example, let's be real. When you have a stroke, One of the most powerful things that you can do is physiotherapy. Nothing else is going to do that mind muscle connection back for you so that you can actually move this arm or that leg or be able to walk again. It's not a drug, right? So I think people need to move from what you were speaking about earlier, which is this instant gratification, right? Example, anxiety. We have two options. We have Valium and we have meditation. We know that meditation works better, but what happens? It takes a little longer. You're probably going to have to do it for about 2 weeks to see the effects. It takes 15 minutes. Valium is a tablet you pop. Exercise. Somebody wants to get in shape. Cool sculpting. What do you call that thing?
What?
BBL.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
tummy tuck liposuction. We have liposuction. We have exercise.
Yes.
One, you're going to wake up in the morning looking different. The next one, you have to work very hard for 6 months at least to see some measurable change. And it's this instant gratification that people have succumbed to. The same thing when you are on social media. This is what is happening. And this is frying people's brains and making them not be the optimal version of themselves.
So, Mike, we have reached a part of our segment called Rapid Blue.
Whoa.
And what it's about is that I'm going to ask some questions.
Yeah.
And the first thought that comes to your mind, that's the answer that we want to get.
Okay.
So tell me when you're ready.
Yeah.
So what gets mistaken for resilience?
Motivation. Yeah. So you don't rise to motivation, you fall to your systems. So if you don't have proper systems, you are crushed. You can't succeed in life because everything is friction and you're always going to find complaints and you're going to find issues with everything and you're not going to get where they need to go. So that's why I say motivation can be mistaken for resilience because motivation was the long-term effect or the short-term effect would be, yeah, I'm motivated, I go and work out, which means I can do something in spite of working 24 hours straight.
Yeah. And I guess, so you would say, when you spoke about consistency and discipline.
Yeah. Yeah.
So most dangerous myth about longevity.
That there's a pill or a quick fix or a peptide or surgery. There's no quick fix to longevity. Longevity is consistency by nature and design. It means you have to be consistently doing what you need to do on a daily basis to get that result. Consistency over intensity.
What's the first system you audit? What's a high performer?
The first thing would be energy systems. The reason is most of the decisions people make are biologically driven, even though they don't understand. It means if I have a lack of energy, I cannot perform. Even if I'm the most intelligent person, even if I have the best resources at my disposal, I cannot perform. So energy metabolism systems, which would be a whole slew of things, including movement patterns, nutrition, how these systems in the body work in terms of sugar regulation, all these different things. Some people say sugar is the root of all evil. I may agree, because we know that it has tremendous impact on everything, including cognition. They are saying that Alzheimer's is diabetes type 3.
Oh, yeah.
All this is just a byproduct of inflammation. And inflammation can be mitigated by having good energy systems, muscle. Muscle is the reservoir for glucose, and that's how you have your glycogen stores. Lack of muscle, I think, is one of the biggest problems we have today. We talk about sarcopenia. People are saying that people are too obese, but I think it's they don't have enough muscle. The lack of muscle. When last have you seen a muscular person with diabetes? It's not common at all because the amount of muscle you have is directly proportional to how much sugar you can actually break down and use. If you don't break down that sugar, it's like a razor blade scraping your arteries. And every single organ system is affected by diabetes and by extension, high blood pressure, because the two usually live together.
Interesting. Now, Mike,
Yeah.
if you had the opportunity, we have found some way to go back in time, and you can speak to young Mike Taylor. What piece of advice would you give him?
Wow. I would tell him, act sooner. Don't wait until you think you are ready to do something. There's a saying that if you wait for the perfect time, it's too late. If a ship waits for the perfect conditions to sail, it never sails. So I would say that speed is the most important thing. Urgency. Approach life with a matter of urgency because our time here is limited. We have AI becoming agentic. We have super intelligence on its way as well too. These things are going to change our life as we know it dramatically and ridiculously. And if you're not prepared, you will be taken by surprise. So I would say one needs to act with urgency. Don't wait until you are ready.
So, Mike, if some member of our audience wants to get in contact with you, how do they do that?
So you can message me on Instagram or LinkedIn. It's dr.michael.taylor on Instagram and Dr. Michael Taylor on LinkedIn.
Thank you very much, man.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes. So, listeners of the Blueprint podcast, there you would have had a conversation with Dr. Michael Taylor, where we would have gone through the conversation about what it takes to become a doctor on a whole. But we dive into a deeper topic about the whole question of healthcare and what we can do in terms of optimizing healthcare, one for the individual, and there's a special project that Dr. Taylor is doing as well for high performers, decision makers, leaders, and the changes in society, in the community, and the world. So that if this conversation was interesting for you, or you know someone that can benefit from what we have discussed today, share it with a friend and reach out to Dr. Taylor as well, where it is that you can optimize your health in where longevity is concerned.
Yes. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks once again, man. And we